Welcome back, everyone.
Hi,
to
everyone.
the Conscious Cowboys podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
I don't know if I feel even fully ready for this right now, but we're
I
here.
don't.
Like I was just itching my nose thinking, okay, this is...
We're on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're fully on camera. And it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So I'll lead us in.
Thank you. You're probably way
She's
better
like,
at it
"Please,
than
God."
I.
I mean, we'll have to see. So I've had this idea for the past 2 weeks maybe, or maybe on and off, just this thought in my head of how cool it is that it's such a simple concept, but how cool it is that humans can change their minds and that it's okay. I think it's about me realizing that fact and accepting that it is okay to change your mind. If you specifically had one opinion and then maybe a year or 5 years later, you changed your mind and just accepted that opinion. I think that that's so intimately human. And I like it a lot.
When you think about this, are you thinking about opinions that you have based on what's right and wrong or what you want for yourself? What is it kind of all encompassing? What do you think?
Yeah, it's all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it's an observation that I've made within myself and other people. And so I just thought it was noteworthy to write it down and then share opinions that we might have changed over the course of however long. Yeah,
I think you can get pretty hard on yourself if you were pretty set in your way or you had your mind made up on something and then you change your mind. It can almost bring up a sense of feeling stupid or...
Yeah, or even if you're starting to believe a certain thing now that's different from how you acted or behaved, maybe it's a betrayal against who you used to be, maybe. Or some group that you belong to and now you no longer belong to.
There's so much, when I think about my past, there's so many instances where I've changed my mind on stuff. And I think there's a fine line between being fickle with something and just learning more about yourself or about something that you feel okay, actually, no, I wasn't so sold on this idea.
Yeah. And also just the fact that we're more educated, hopefully, as we get older. So we're able to make more informed decisions. I'm okay, I remember thinking that way, but that's no longer the case.
Okay. Can you start us off with some tangible idea of this?
Okay. So I have quite a few and none are in order of most important to least important. Oh my God. When your notes app just quits on you, I was if they're gone, this
episode's
stop.
over.
Yeah. Okay. So 1, my smallest was not my healthiest. So my smallest body, the least amount that I've weighed, for example, was not my healthiest. And I think for a long time I thought that it was. And now I know that to not be the case.
Oh God, this is such a big one. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, but obviously especially women, there's a lot of that pressure on you that you're going to be the most attractive and the most happy if you are the smallest you could possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it can suck a lot of your happiness out.
Yeah.
And we all know that,
made me
but
the most unhealthy that I've ever been, completely drained my entire life force in the pursuit of being the thinnest that I could be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that I climbed out of that one. Even though you see it, I used to be very, for lack of a better word, triggered by people who still have that belief of their smallest is undoubtedly their healthiest. And that used to really fuck me up mentally when I'd see someone living like that. But now I just am well, that's their path they're on. I can try and help them if they want it. But if not, then they got to figure it out.
When you say it would mess you up, can you share with me?
It would mess me up in the way of I would go back on wait.
Should I?
Yeah. Should I be back in that space of well, yeah, smallest, healthiest, prettiest, whatever, insert whatever you want to say. And now I don't feel that way because I know in my heart and obviously through experience that that's not true. So it's okay.
Yeah. That's a powerful one. And I think about this, cause we're talking about, I guess, food in a sense too, is I used to think that being plant-based was like the best route for my body.
Yeah, that's on my list too.
Yeah. And you introduced me to being plant-based. So I was like, and it was easy for me to do it because I had you along my side.
Mm-hmm.
But I quickly realized that that was either I was doing it incorrectly or it wasn't right for my body. But regardless, plant-based is like not meant for me, especially at this time, maybe ever. But I am always careful of not making like too concrete of a statement because I don't know. But I have felt so much, as you said, life force come back into me, introducing non-plant-based foods back into my diet. Like my hormones, I think, are way more steady. My skin conditions cleared up. I feel like mental clarity is coming back to me. Like my stomach health is better. There's so much that used to be wrong that I didn't realize was maybe contributed to by my food.
Yes.
And now I'm like, why did I think, like, I think it was a lot of propaganda, right?
Oh,
of what you see
1,000%.
online. And there's people that you think, oh gosh, they're doing it so
they're
well.
They're like the epitome of health. Like I need to be that way. And since they're on a plant-based diet, even though our bodies are completely different, I need to be on a plant-based diet because I'm going to achieve the same results, which is incorrect.
Yeah. That's a tough one though, because there's an ethical element to it as well, where you think, oh man, I don't want to eat animals. But then at the same time, like I know that that's the way my body is able to sustain itself. So I can't think about it. Or if I do think about it, I have to be grateful for what I am consuming and make sure it's coming from the right place and then move on.
Right. Yeah, that's how I have to. I feel like we can get into like a whole debate as to what is ethical and what is not, like vegan versus meat eating, but let's just not even go there. For the sake of this podcast, used to believe that veganism was the only way and the right way for us. Like we were like pretty vocal about this, I feel. And like we were laughing the other day, which I fully understand this because we've been here, is that like when you're vegan, everyone has to know you're vegan. You know?
It's like it becomes your personality.
Yes, which it totally did. It became mine for sure because everyone had to know, because also I couldn't go out with people or like go to dinner or be at a family gathering without having everyone know this.
Because everyone has to plan around your dietary restrictions and like that's okay. That's okay. But it was by choice, not by necessity.
Right. And also it just was made for a more stressful eating experience in the end.
There was for me, it became like too much thought around that. And I think it was causing a lot of my imbalances, honestly.
Right. Yeah. I would agree.
My stomach would flare up because I was thinking about every little detail I was eating. And then when my stomach's flaring up, then my skin's off and then my brain is a little more foggy. Like there's so many elements that came into it where it's like, just eat what you need to eat.
Right. Yes. And enjoy like with your family this meal that they're making. Yeah. Agreed. And okay, so my turn.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back and forth with you the whole time.
Like you're just gonna,
but like I'll be able to elaborate on things that you say.
It's perfect. Okay. So another one, rest is not a reward. It's a requirement.
Oh, this is a big one for us both recently. And if I'm going to let you take the mic, I promise. But I was just thinking about that one bit of a podcast that we did where I was saying like, oh my God, it's sun up to sundown with us. Like we don't stop and we constantly feel like, okay, we did accomplish this. Now we have to go do this. We have to go do this. And we never took time to just chill. And in the past, I'd say 2 months, this has been the most level we've been.
Yeah. And for that, I would say what attributed to that, besides like me getting into reading a lot, but is us moving into this apartment. Because I personally, being in our last space and maybe even the one before that, but mostly our last, is I didn't really like it. Like I wanted to be always moving. It didn't feel like home. So I wouldn't want to sit like in my room and chill in there. Now I do, because I like our apartment and our space, and like we're just healthier and happier at this time. So it feels easier to rest, not so much like I'm like forcing myself to rest anymore.
Yeah.
Which sometimes I still do have to do that because I really like to be active and I like to do a lot of hard shit all the time. And then sometimes I'll be in yoga, like last Saturday, and I got on the mat and it was super fucking hot in the room because it's heated. And I was just like, I should leave. Like everything in my body was like, you're not ready for this right now. And I still did the class and like trying to like almost fight that mindset throughout the whole class. And I was like, you can just relax and not go as hard as normal. Like it's okay. But after I was like, damn, I should have truly just like been like, you know what? I gotta go. Like,
but like when the effort's
not
there,
there.
you drove over there, you signed up. Like
No, I
you
know.
There, I can't ever picture you walking out of something like that.
I think the main reason I wouldn't walk out is just like, this is so typical of me, is like out of fear that the teacher or like people in the class that I don't even know would be like, oh my God, why is she walking out? Which like, who
and
actually
then
cares?
think about you. Yeah.
Yeah. Which they wouldn't. They just be like, think about me for about 5 seconds and see me leave and be like, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, rest is a requirement, not so much a reward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I still have to remind myself of, but I'm leaning more towards the belief of how necessary rest is.
Yeah. One I can bring up is working more does not always make you more successful.
Totally.
Because I am someone who can put everything else aside for work, and I will work and I will work and I will work and I will work. And what that leads to is an imbalance in my life where I'm not taking care of myself like I should. Like I was talking to Philip this morning and he's like, I called him right when I got home from teaching. And then he was like, okay, yeah, go make some food. And I'm like, okay. And then I get on my computer and I work some more. And then he calls again.
Do that.
Yep. He calls again. He's like, I know you haven't eaten yet. And I'm like, how do you know?
Dude, thank God for Phil. If you're listening, which you better fucking be listening, thank you.
But he's like, I know you haven't. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? Like Madison's not here to report back to you on that. And he's like, because, and I realized because he left me a note in the egg carton.
Oh, that's cute.
And he's like, you would have said something if you had seen it. So that's how I know you didn't eat yet. But yeah, I think that I am someone who really wants to be successful in my role and in life. And I take pride in my work ethic. So I push myself super hard in that direction. And then everything else kind of falls off.
Which is like funny. And I do similar things to this too, is like, we know logically that there are so many sayings for this, is like, you can't, what is it? You can't pour from an empty cup,
right,
or whatever, things like that. That is what's happening. Like you want to invest more in yourself, but like we truly like, so then this was another thought that I had, which it relates to yours, is like, we did an episode like a year ago maybe about how like having it all, like, can you have it all? Which I think, okay, technically, yes, you could have it all, but would you be giving your best in each area of your life, like each of your all situations? Probably not. So I think about that like in relation to this, because you're giving your all in one area of your life, even though you know logically like, oh, I should be giving it back to myself. And then you get hard on yourself for not giving it back to yourself, but you don't have enough energy for that because you're putting all your eggs in that basket of work.
Yep.
And I know logically you know that, but I think like sometimes like speaking it out loud is maybe helpful.
Totally. I think this podcast itself is just very cathartic for us, and we get a lot out of it. And then when other people get a lot out of it too, I think it makes it all the more worth our while. But it's just, I recognize that pattern within myself, and it's something that I'm trying to actively unlearn. Like I inherently know it, but putting it into practice is a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, which is really interesting, because I think like, not that I would have the solution to that, but the only way through that, I think, is just to try to give more to yourself. Because I feel like as women in general, like we are just, not everyone, but typically like feminine roles are nurturing and giving, and that's very much you. But I think you need to turn that inward instead of outward. Not so much so that you're like saying fuck it to the outside world and like your friends and stuff, but you just need to turn a little more of it inward versus outwardly.
I agree. And then I think about it too of like, well, how? Like, because you know me, I'm a very logical brain. I need to kind of make a plan for it. And I think what it might come down to, and I'll have to experiment with it, is time blocking. Figuring out, okay, I'm going to look at my day and I'm going to carve out 2 hours here. I'm going to make sure I carve out time for lunch. Like I guess I'm that person right now that has to schedule my day until I get to that better balance where I don't find myself logging on and checking emails when I shouldn't, right? Like take real time away from that task, go take care of yourself, come back to it with like clear eyes.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good place to start, because then like in my head, I go to like the next step of like, I was thinking, this is going to go off on a full tangent. I'm not even going to go into it, but I was thinking about like how that could contribute to like discipline. Like you need that discipline in order to like switch off your brain a little bit, or like move it more towards like nurturing yourself versus like others. And then I was thinking about like discipline versus like devotion, which is like a whole other thought topic, which we could even, I don't even know if I want to get into it, because I feel like I need, oh my God, we're fine. I thought I just punctured the couch with my platform Uggs.
I was like, great, we've been wanting a new one.
Dude, Phil would be like, yes. He put like spikes on the bottom of my shoes. No, so discipline versus devotion, of like discipline being very masculine and devotion maybe leaning towards more of like a feminine energy. So I was thinking like obviously we have a good balance of like masculine and feminine. So discipline in your approach with like time blocking, that's working for you now. And then if you wanted to transfer it maybe more into like devotional work for yourself, that would be like more along the feminine line of like cyclical feelings of like when you need to eat, or like rhythms versus like strict time blocks.
Yeah.
But I think that it is smart to start off with time blocks, because I feel like I had to do that in the beginning. Not like I'm some fucking guru, but like I had to do that in the beginning just so I could set up a constant way to feed myself. For example, like, okay, 7 a.m., 12, 6, whatever.
Right.
Snacks in between if you want them. So it's a good place to start.
Exactly. I think I need like baby steps in order to find a little bit more of a rhythm. And then once I'm in my flow, I can start to do things a little more on that feminine side, as you're saying. Mm-hmm. But right now I'm like, I almost feel like out of touch with that. So I have to take my approach first to get there.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm also laughing because sometimes you're like exactly what I need, right? Like in terms of what you can offer me.
And same, vice versa. Yeah.
And last night I was having a really deep life talk with Philip, and we were talking about,
dude, was this after you were texting me about the Yosemite stuff?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was like, they're going to get into some life talk sound, because I'm watching our like family friends home for the next 2 weeks. So then I'm not in the apartment. So it's Phil and Tess, and they get their little honeymoon phase in here.
Yeah, yeah. But we were having a deep life talk, and I brought up how we were talking about like having someone to talk to, right? And like just who can you and what do you talk about with those people? And I was like, honestly, like I could totally pick up therapy, but I have Madison, and not that I need to rely on you, but like a lot of times we have just a really simple conversation, and I'm like, oh, there it is.
Heck yeah. That makes me happy.
Like I could dive into it further, and I'm not trying to like weigh you down and be like, Madison, I need your therapy right now.
No, I honestly like it. Like it's like my act of service in the world.
Sometimes it's burdensome.
It
right?
can be. It can be. Certain people
or certain events.
But not with you. Yeah.
Yes. Thanks. And I'm sure sometimes it is, but you love me, so you deal with it.
Right. Yeah. Of course.
Okay. Hit me with another one. I'm curious what you have.
Another one. Okay. I wrote down that this is, I guess, seemingly a big one, because I wrote down a lot, is you don't have to punish yourself to achieve the results you want.
Oh.
And that, I was thinking of a lot of examples, like how my mindset has changed around like movement, for example. Like I used to, which I actually liked it, like doing like high intensity workouts when I was going to college. And then now it's like I do yoga almost every day, and I hike, which is more mellow. But I feel like very strong and grounded in my body now, versus when I was doing HIIT, like yoga would not have been enough. Like I'd have to do like a HIIT class and a yoga class to feel like fulfilled. And now I'm like, that's just not it for me. Which I like that I've been able to switch my mindset with that, because it's a less stressful transition.
Yeah, for sure. How do you think you've been able to switch your mindset around it?
I think purely out of necessity.
Like you hit a wall and you're like, I actually cannot keep this up.
Yeah. And like, not only was my body signaling that maybe like high intensity, really rough workouts were not for me, but just like I started to dislike them also. like body's telling you first, and sometimes you ignore those signals, like when your body tells you stuff and you're just like, no, probably not. But then my mind's like with it started to connect with my body signals, and I was like, yeah, maybe this just isn't it.
Well, I think, that's an interesting point, because there are a lot of us who don't necessarily like movement, right? Like I'm not personally one of those, but I know there's tons of people out there who are like, I don't actually enjoy working out, and they would continue to push themselves anyways because they think it's good for them.
Right. So then I was also thinking about that too, because I think you like finding, I mean, balance is like, that word is thrown around all the time, but I think like I also still challenge myself. Like, it's not like I just do like really mellow, safe feeling workouts all the time. Like, I still have to push myself also, just because like I want to reach another level, for example, or I want to get stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So then to that, I would say, yes, we also do need a little bit of challenge and push, maybe, especially in the beginning of a workout journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say because we're so far along in ours that like I have to like be back in the mindset of like, what was it like?
I think it's really confronting when you first start something. I think it's
Yeah.
humbling. It's a learning curve. So you don't really feel like it's yours yet and you haven't gotten the hang of it. So yeah, I think there is an initial push that you have to make of like, just do it anyways, because you don't know, you might fall in love with it. But then after that, like within a month of doing something, I think you know whether or not this makes you feel
Totally.
good.
Yeah.
And then you can decide from there. But that's interesting because you're someone who is very dedicated and disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
But so it's cool to see you slow down. Not that you're slower in a lazier way, but right?
Yeah.
Like you're tuning into yourself more, and it's not so much of like what you should do.
Right. It's like what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And luckily what I want is something that will make my body healthy and strong. So like that's just lucky, maybe, I don't know, or through like lifestyle choices and just my experience alone. Like that's how I've ended up in this place. But yeah, it is interesting to think about like just movement in general, because I still like yoga is very challenging, and this is just like something I'm really obsessed with right now is yoga. So that's why I'm using it as an example. But I also just like that it makes me like very present in my body, and that like I am excited as I keep getting older to like explore that space, because I think that like my body and everyone's body has a lot of wisdom like already inherently within us, and we need to do as many things as we can to tap into that. Like that's just one of my like purposes, I think, in this life is to find that out for myself and maybe like help others if they want it. But
well, I was going to ask you, have you noticed a shift in your nervous system? I know obviously circumstances are very different now with your life compared to how they were when you were in that higher intensity mode. And not that there's anything wrong with higher intensity workouts. It's not that we're like,
and then I'll never
down.
do it again. Like I would be down. Like I love a Soul Cycle class or whatever.
But I think what you're speaking to is just being able to listen to your body more. And if like that's not it for you right now, then you need to try something different. But at the time of doing high intensity workouts, did you feel like I'm pushing myself too hard, or did it feel right to do that in comparison to now?
That's a good question. In the moment, it did feel right, mostly because I was listening to outside perspectives and maybe expectations of what a healthy workout routine looked like versus internally checking in with what I wanted. Yeah. So I was more disconnected from myself during that time, and so I was more prone to listening to others.
Yep.
And a lot of good did come from high intensity workouts, although I didn't feel like, maybe cardiovascularly I was fit, but I am very fit now in that way just from hiking. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't take, not that you're asking this, but I wouldn't take that experience back. Like I'm glad that I had that experience in doing that, because comparing that feeling to how I feel now is just, it's like miles better. But it's also crazy like to think when I was doing those HIIT classes that I was drinking like a lot of caffeine. Like there's so many other lifestyle choices that were just so incorrect. And that probably contributed to how stressed my body was. But it's crazy how like those things can correlate with each other. Like
because you have the caffeine and you're like, I need to go.
Yeah.
I need to like.
And then I need more. Like my life has to be really fast paced. Like everything is fast paced. Like let's fucking go. And I'm like, okay, let's just slow it down just a little bit because I've been going like high speed for years. And now it's like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like still very effective. And like maybe I could argue even more so than being fast paced. So let's just explore this.
Yep.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Sick. I really like this version of Madison.
Thank you.
Yeah. I liked them all, to be fair.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm really liking this one.
Yay.
I'm thinking about when it comes to like being able to change your mind and be okay with it. There's like 2 major instances where I've felt this and I've had to remind myself like it's okay that you're experiencing a major shift right now. One is like in terms of career, and I know you experienced this too. We dove into the fashion industry and I thought like, oh, for sure, I'm going to have something major here. Like I felt like I was good at it. I felt like there was a calling there. It just felt right. It was fun. I loved it. And then there was something that happened where I just remember feeling like I'm sitting at a desk. I'm looking at my computer screen. I'm feeling drained. I just don't like this. And it wasn't from A to B. There was a middle step there that led me to becoming a fitness instructor and kind of taking this whole route. But listening to that and being okay with like, oh, I was on this trajectory career-wise and now it's different. And I might not be making the money that I used to be making, or I might not have the stability I used to have. Those are really hard things to grapple with, especially when you're a young adult and you don't have a safety net. Like I don't have a something to catch me, right? Like
right.
I have great family, but I don't have a nest egg to fall back on. Like you have to still follow yourself. And I remember that was my thing, was like, but I'm enjoying this. And like, I'm also good at this and this makes me happy. And maybe there's going to come a day where it doesn't make me happy, but for right now, this feels right. And I have to follow this. And I have to like not worry about all of those little details that used to really consume me, of like, do this because it's a stable job and it's a 9 to 5 and I know what my paychecks are going to look like. Like, I mean, that's awesome. And I want that for myself again, but I know that you can speak to this on the opposite end, right?
Yeah.
Like you left my industry or our industry and you went into something different now.
And that, yeah, I'm trying to think if I have a
thought on it.
I mean, I have many thoughts on it, but I think about like, I think about how it would pertain like to this episode. Not that it has to, but I'm like, have I changed my beliefs because of the current job that I hold? Maybe or maybe not. So what Tess is talking about is that now I have like a more so like typical 9 to 5 job, even though it's not really, but like it could be considered it because I work for like a accounting firm, but I have like a lot more freedom. And that was purely out of necessity again, is that like I just needed to be in this role because being a fitness professional, if we could call ourselves that, probably was just not serving me anymore, even though that title, like mentally, I really liked that because I was like, we're going against the grain, like we're doing what we love, we get to move our bodies and like help others do the same. And now I work behind a computer for most of the day, which is like
in fairness, I do too, but
yeah, which is like not my favorite, but it's just like is a good stepping stone to where we want to be, and also like helps us put more energy in Cowboys, which we've like said a million times.
Yeah.
So that's why I was hesitant to say it, is because I'm like, well, I don't know if I've changed my belief, because I don't really want to work in like the corporate world still. And I'm like, maybe that will change in 2 years. I don't know. But I'd rather be in a more creative position like this. Yeah. Like what we're doing right now.
Yep. Another way I've thought about it too, like when you brought up like it's okay to change your mind, was when it comes to who you surround yourself with. This is a big one, because you can obviously be really in love with people. It doesn't have to be a relationship. You can love your friends and love your family. But if they're not supporting you, or they're not helping you in your evolution and you're not helping them, like if it's not a fit, you have to be okay with that change happening, changing your mind on spending every day with them, changing your mind on them being your life partner or your support system or whatever the case may be. That's really one where I think I personally, like, I don't view people as disposable. Like, it really is difficult for me to move on from people or to even cut back. And I've had to train myself of like, no, that's an important part of being a human, is letting there be an ebb and a flow with individuals. And it's not always in your favor. Like, it is in your favor, but it's not always going to trend in the positive direction.
And it's true. And like thinking back to like the theme of this whole episode is that others change their mind and they're also allowed to change their mind too. So sometimes like you can be on the same path as someone and then they just have a completely different viewpoint all of a sudden because they changed their mind. Like we all
and
evolve.
That's okay.
Yeah. And that's okay. And sometimes you guys need to veer off just because of that. And that's fine.
I've experienced that with partners, obviously. I feel like we all have. I've experienced that with friendships. And it's like honestly really devastating in the moment. But then when you are able to distance yourself from that point in time, you're able to be grateful for the fact that you guys are no longer on the same path, because you're now recognizing that you are very different people. And while they might be still awesome, you're just, it's not it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good realization. But I was thinking like just from like observation is how you're saying that it can be like really difficult. Like you don't dispose of people, which is like a good thing, I think, obviously. But like how it's been hard for you to detach from certain people is maybe that's just like your giving qualities, you know, because you give so much of yourself into that person and then they've changed their course and you're like, but wait, like I've given you so much of myself, you know? So it's like a part of you leaving too, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's like that to me, when I hear that, I think of like me and like past partners, but there's even been friendships where I've been like, no, like you are one of my best friends, but it doesn't fit anymore.
Yes.
Like the choices you're making or even just like your life, like it's not going to work. And you know, you try and you try and you try, and then you get to a point where you're just like, okay, cut it off.
Yeah. That is such it's both. I feel like there's like two heads of the coin of like, that's such a devastating part of getting older is like having to distance yourself from people that you were like so entwined with. And then the other side is like, well, that's just a really beautiful part of our evolution as humans.
And you have to learn to let it be just an element of your story, that they don't have to go with you the whole time.
Just thank them for what you guys had and okay, wish you well. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah. Look at us just pulling out this episode.
Dude.
Who would have thought? Honestly, my notes would have thought. They're pretty extensive notes.
My brain wouldn't have that.
No, my brain was not on this page today, but I feel like we've been doing a really good job. Okay. I'm trying to think if we kind of touched on which we could just like rattle these off, is like success is not a one size fits all, which I really like. I always want to believe that. Like you touched on this a little bit earlier in the episode, but I want to believe this until the day that I'm no longer on this earth, because I think we see, like all of us see how many paths like make it to success. And a lot of times they look pretty similar, but I want to like defy the odds.
Yeah.
And I don't know how exactly we're going to do that, but I know we're going to do it. Like we're already on our way.
Yeah. And then you hear stories or you see people where you're like, that wasn't the traditional path. And then it gives you inspiration and hope. Where
Like,
you're like,
thank God
okay.
for those stories, or else I'd just be like, okay, well, I'm just scraping the bottom of the barrel here and I'm imagining something that may not be true, but I fully think that it's possible.
I do too. And even if we were imagining something that's not going to come true, okay.
Yeah, like where's the harm in that?
Yeah.
Like if that thought makes me happy, then I'm going to still be thinking it. Okay, so another one, which I know you'll agree with, is more is not always better. With so many things like clothing, movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think inviting it all in is going to help you fill the space or what you need. And a lot of times it just makes you feel cluttered.
Yeah.
Or overwhelmed.
Yes. Like I'm always just thinking more. And that is like, why do we think that's better? Is it because we live in like a consumption based society?
Probably, maybe.
Yeah. And then I think sometimes that's like a betrayal to myself because I'm like, how do I not think that I alone don't have enough? That's just like a whole other thing I could talk about, which we're not going to, of like enough. But yeah, then I even get deep into it like that. Anyway, so versus like more, or for the thought of like more is not always better. I think like now my thought is more so back to basics.
That's scaling it back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to me. Like when you say more is not always better, you are so minimalist in your approach to life. Like if you were to look at Madison's closet, you would think, what? Like you picture it being robust and she doesn't own a lot, right?
Yeah.
And like you look underneath her bathroom cabinet, she doesn't own a lot. You require very little to get by. You know, you have big hopes and dreams, and you talk about them a lot where you're like, oh, Madison's going places. That's awesome. But in terms of your day to day, like you live very humbly. Is that a word?
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe are you thinking like more is not more because you have like really big belief systems and like you want more material items or you want more success and you realize that it's just like those are just things and you have it all already?
I mean, yes, but also maybe if I'm thinking like more, like my definition of more is like if I'm always looking for like the next best thing of like what is gonna propel me to be like the most optimal human on this planet, and I just am trying to like consume so much. Oh
God, yes. Okay, I get where you're going now.
And I'm really good at consuming a lot of information, and sometimes it's just
overload.
Yeah, it is overload. And I think like maybe tuning it back and like relying more so on my wisdom versus others. But obviously there's a place for others. Like it really gets me thinking. Like last night I was seriously reading all these articles on like health and wellness, you know, for in the broader term. And it got my mind thinking like I needed it. I was like, okay, tonight I like had to consume this real world information because my head has been in like a fantasy book for the last like 3 weeks. So I like had to do that.
Okay.
But
I get that.
In like broader terms, I just need to like scale it back sometimes and be like, okay, well, what makes sense to me?
Yeah, because
with, like,
it can get confusing.
Yeah.
Because you start thinking like, oh God, I've been exposed to so much information and maybe that is the right way of doing it. And like, do I need to try that?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I've been fucking up for the last like 7 mornings. Like I haven't been doing this one routine that is like guaranteeing optimal health. And then it's stressful. And I'm like, no, I don't need that extra stress. Like who's saying that's the right way anyway?
Something I want to bring up is someone that I followed for a brief moment in time because I thought, oh, wow, this is riveting, right? This person is so invested in their health and they're constantly running these labs and they're getting all of this data and here's what you need to know. And like, wow, did that really spark me up? I'm like, ooh, there's all like, I'm someone who loves a lot of information and I like data, but I realized data is messing me up. Like, yes, it can help me find answers to questions I have, but sometimes it's you're searching too hard.
Yes.
Why are you running all these labs? What are you looking for? What is your goal? Why don't you just chill and enjoy what you have in your life? Like it's going to be over. You never know when it's going to be over.
Yeah, it's so true.
And will having all that lab work done on a consistent basis really make you live that much longer? I mean, yes, if you don't get some tragic event, sure, maybe.
I know.
But it was just so stressful to me. And I'm like, I had to unfollow. Like she posted something about all the stuff she recently, like what she does annually. I'm not trying to talk shit, but I am. Like, I was like, why the fuck are you doing all that? Like, okay, I get why, but it's way too much for me personally. And I do not want to see this right now.
Yes, I fully understand that because it's interesting because I feel like we both advocate for like experimenting on yourself. But then I also think like we're not science experiments. You know, like obviously there's a place for lab work and things like that. And I do want to know sometimes what's happening in my body on that level. But I also want to be able to listen to myself and like discern what is right and wrong versus having to look at a test all the time.
Yeah. And sometimes I think, okay, those tests are only capturing that moment in time.
Yes, which is true.
And we know how the body changes significantly. It can change over the span of a day, right? Your cortisol levels can be super high in the morning, super low at night, or you're like, there's so much that happens, your blood sugar, right? So if you're getting testing done, I don't know. It just, when you do it at that level,
it's a bit excessive. Yes, I would agree.
like,
It's just too stressful for me. Like there's a lot of other things going on. I can't
right now
put all my energy into that
Exactly.
or I will be robotic and turn off from life.
Reminds me of that person who's trying to reverse age.
Dude, I know.
And it's
I listened
like,
to a whole
I
podcast
understand
on
it,
that.
but it's consuming. And now what is life?
No, it is consuming. It is his entire life. Like billionaire who invests in himself to make him basically immortal in a sense. Is his purpose. That is his purpose, I guess, in life. But even I was listening, this is like I wish I could remember his name, but he was on the Rich Roll podcast, and it was an episode. And he was talking about, because Rich Roll's like, well, do you like date people? Like, how could you date? Like, do you have someone in your life like in that romantic sort of way? And he's saying no, like how he's lonely and he doesn't have anyone at the moment. And but he's seeking that out. And I was sad for him because like also that can contribute to like you dying sooner is just loneliness.
Yes.
So in the pursuit of him, like his immortality, like he's also like, he cannot have it all. That's clearly a big picture of he can't have it all. And he's cutting off like relationships in his life like that, which maybe that will help make him die sooner. I don't know.
Time will tell. But
time will tell because he has a lot of information out on himself, and I'm sure we'll be able to see.
Wow. It is fascinating though.
It is. Yeah.
Do you have anything else that called to you when you thought it's okay to change your mind?
Honestly, I feel good about ending it there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. I think it's awesome to be able to change your mind on things and be like truly okay with it.
Yeah.
Like recognizing that you've come far and that things no longer work for you.
Right. And they were right at the time. Like you needed those beliefs for a certain reason. And they were probably like my old beliefs were fundamental to who I am now and like helped me get to where I am now and where I want to be. So yeah, not to say we obviously don't regret our past beliefs, clearly, but we've just changed and we've evolved.
And hope I can continue.
1,000%.
Truly.
We will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just being able to think about life this deeply, like on a weekly basis, really aids in that.
Oh my God. I live for this shit. Like this type of conversation. I just love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing all of that goodness, Madison.
Yeah. You too.
Thanks
for chatting. And I'm so proud of us that we did this episode. We really we did it.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Like, where even are we now?
Like 5 minutes before we were recording, I was taking a work call in a bikini bottom sitting on our balcony. And then Madison's like, all right, we got to get moving. I'm like,
yeah, we're like, okay, let's do this.
It's time. Yeah. Okay. But I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
I always am every week.
Oh yeah. After it, I'm just like, damn, we fucking crushed it. Like, even if it's not like the best of our episodes, like it's pretty incredible. I think that we can like get on here and talk for like 45 minutes, just like rattling off each other and like off of our things that we think about in our minds.
Yeah, I was wanting to do like improv classes and then I realized I don't need that.
Yeah, we basically do it. Dude, that'd be fun.
It'd be fun in like a playful way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And just to like get us like a little bit more quick.
I could use that.
Do you think?
Dude, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Okay, but
anyway,
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And also for anyone who has bought a hat, I feel like this is worth mentioning. We're going to ship those out soon and give an estimate price. It's just been a little crazy around here and we haven't gotten to it. So apologies. And also, if you do still want one, we have 5 black hats left. So yeah.
And personally, the black's my favorite. So she looks great in the white.
I do like
I
the
think
white.
I look better in the black. So You never know what you might like.
Yeah, it's true. And if you want them, at the Conscious Cowboys on Instagram, just DM us.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
a good plug. Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. You guys have a
All
great
right.
week.
Talk
we love
soon.
you. Bye.